John Sokoloff with WCBI. Can you kind of take us through the last few days from Stanford to now in terms of emotions, phone calls, and what logistics have kind of been like for you in the program?
Well, obviously, that was an incredible win for us. It's up there with one of the best wins as a head coach I've been a part of. Probably tied with going to Florida Gulf Coast and taking down Carl Semesco. He was a juggernaut, his program in the mid-major level, and obviously Tara has been incredible. So it was great. Our team celebrated as we always do. It don't matter who we play. It's a big deal when we win. We try to celebrate our wins. And we kind of let that hang with us for about 48 hours and came to Seattle and took in the sights and scenes. The girls went to the Pike Market and the Needle, so that was kind of cool. I didn't have a chance to do it, but I've lived in the Pacific Northwest, so I'm not a stranger to it. But for them, it's been great. And today, we have been incredibly focused and really kind of shutting off all of the outside noise, so to speak, and starting to get focused for our opponent tomorrow.
Doug, go ahead.
Hey, Coach Doug Feinberg of the AP. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Doug.
I was hoping you could expand a little bit on your comment the other night about just if you see it, you can be it. There are 3 black women head coaches left. Obviously, you, Coach Staley, and Coach
Right.
Ivy, and Coach Brooks being the only male black coach. How big is that? And also, I should say that there are 12 out of the 16 teams left have female coaches in charge. So how big is that overall picture of having 3 black women and
Right.
12 women overall still playing for coaching women's basketball?
Right. It's a great question. I thought about it a lot. I just think representation matters no matter what. I remember going to watch the movie Black Panther, and it was the first time I saw a black superhero, but I didn't even realize I had never seen a black superhero before until I watched the movie. Immediately, I felt like I could be a superhero. It's the same for, us as coaches of color. We coach majority black and brown girls, So I think it's important for them to see that they can take this route if they want to later. And then women in sports is Women's History Month. Like, this is the time for women to be celebrated. And I hate the whole narrative about, oh, why is it a big deal? Why does it have to be race? It's race because it's not normal. Anything that's not normal is a big deal. It's a big deal that there are 12 women still coaching because we are making it normal for women to be respected and in leadership. Just 3 years ago, we were complaining about just being respected in the NCAA tournament. We just got the March Madness hashtag, so how can we try to downplay all of these opportunities for people to see women in leadership and then women of color and people of color? It's something cool. I have 2 daughters. They may want to be a doctor or a lawyer, but they also know that they can be a coach if they want to, and I think that's important, and that's why I said you can't be what you can't see.
Hi, Sabrina Merchant, The Athletic. I'm curious, how did you develop such a strong sense of belief, and then how did you bring your players alongside to have that, belief with you?
I just think it's one of my attributes as just an individual, and it stems from my heritage, from being from the Bahamas. We are small as far as population, but we're prideful people, and we just always have a belief in anything we can do, and we've just always seen it. Maybe not as often as you see superstars in America, but from track stars in the Olympics, Debbie Ferguson and Michael Thompson, and the list goes on and on. Like, these are pioneers for our sport from our country. And so coming up, I've always seen excellence from our small little island. So I've always believed I'm grateful that I had an opportunity to come to the United States and realized that my head was probably a little bit too big because I got real normal once I came to the U.S. And because in the Bahamas, I was the best, and I came and I wasn't even close. But, I think one of the things that is important for my team is the whole mantra and no ceilings, that there's no limit to what you could accomplish. And I really believe that. And I think that young people get told so much what they can't do. And all you have to do is plant that seed of doubt, right? And all of a sudden they don't think that they can do whatever maybe it is that they want to do. So every once in a while I ask my children what they want to be, and they change it every time. But I always encourage them. I don't care if they say they want to be a hairstylist, whatever it is, I want them to believe. Because I think in the absence of hope, that's where hate comes in and hate creeps in. And so I just want everybody around me to be hopeful. And so that is our program, and that's why they move like that. They kind of get that from me.
Take one from Kevin, and then we'll take a couple on Zoom also. Kevin, go ahead.
Kevin Pelton, ESPN. Along the lines of belief, we hadn't seen a number one seed lose in the first two rounds at home since it went back to that format. Then we see it back-to-back nights with you in Miami pulling that off. And do you feel like there's an element where, what your team was able to accomplish led to a belief from somebody else?
Probably. I mean, again, representation matters, right? It's not only race or gender. It's seeing someone accomplish something great. I think women's basketball took a huge turn when Mississippi State beat UConn. Like right then and there, I was in the crowd, and I was like, whoa. You couldn't even wrap your head around someone beating UConn at the time. And then once that happened, we saw other teams starting to do it, Dawn and everybody. And so I think it did help. And they texted us afterwards, so maybe it did.
And take a couple on Zoom here. We're going to start with Gabriella Lewis, please.
Hi, Coach. Gabriella Lewis, the next. I was hoping you could speak to the recruiting of Madison Scott, the belief she's had in this program and the impact that she's made in the growth of this program. And then where do you feel like she has grown on and off the court in her 3 years with you?
Ooh, Maddie is a unique individual. When we were recruiting her, she had she had narrowed it down to 5, and 4 of the teams were in the top 25. And obviously, we can't even get a vote. Ask Doug. So, we weren't in the top 25 3 years ago if we can't get a vote now. That was a stab at him. I've been waiting on that moment. But I went to her and I said, look, Maddie, we're not in the top 25, but you can come here and you can help us get there if you believe. And I think people that come to Ole Miss believe in 3 things. They believe in themselves, they believe in me, and they believe in the vision of the program. And her high school coach put a picture up, Gabriella, they put a picture up of when she said she was coming to Ole Miss, and she was crying, and I was hugging her. And they put the picture when we beat Stanford. She was crying, and I was hugging her, and we were both crying. And I just think Maddie means the world to this program. This is Maddie's program. She is continuously getting better, wants to put Ole Miss on the map, wants to do it for her family, herself, and she is an ultimate joy to coach.
And one more Zoom question. Lindsay Schnell, please.
Hey, Coach Joe, it's Lindsay from USA Today. Congrats on beating Stanford.
Thank you.
So obviously you went viral the other day with your comment about, that you called Old Miss
No.
and pitched yourself. What I was curious about is, a lot of times coaches are not the first choice, but they're the right choice. When you got to Old Miss and you knew that they had talked to other people, maybe they had offered other people the job, what gave you the confidence to still believe, even though you weren't the first choice? And do you I'm curious if anyone gave you any sort of like pep talk saying, hey, so and so wasn't the first choice and look how good they turned out.
Well, you know, I knew I wasn't the first choice because when I called a search firm, they told me that there were people ahead of me, and if it got to me, then maybe they'll call me back. And I was just at peace at shooting my shot. You know what I'm saying, Lindsay? Like, I just don't think you can make the shot if you don't take it. And so I was actually working out, and I stopped in the middle of my workout, and I called a search firm and, introduced myself and expressed my interest. Well, 48 hours after that, Chad Chatlos called and said, yo, you have an interview. And I was like, for which job? And he said, Ole Miss. And I remember getting off the phone, and my first call was to Don Staley. And I said, Don, I have an interview at Ole Miss. What do you think? And she said, yo, it's a tough job, but if anybody can do that job, it's you. And I said, nah, you need to give me more why. And she said, because you can recruit, and do you believe in yourself that much, and players will play hard for you. And so when I showed up on campus after getting the job, you spend 5 minutes with me, you believe you could fly too. I just have a belief in myself. I'm unapologetic about it. I know I'm an acquired taste. You either love me or you hate me. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I was raised that way. My parents raised me to have confidence in myself and to not look for that from anybody else, for it to be internal. So no one had to give me, you weren't the first. I'm not ashamed of it, Listen, my husband wasn't the first, but we've been married going on 16 years, And I almost went to transfer portal on him a couple times. But we're happily married, and June 8th makes us 16 years. So, you take it how you get it, and you make the most of it.
You had one, then back to them.
That whole, kind of story, not just with the program going from 0-16 a few years ago to what it is now, and you being able to get.
We gotta let that go, John, at some point.
But all of this but the overcoming through all of this, but with you personally, all that you've overcame, like what you just said with, being able to get this job and coming here from the Bahamas, your own personal overcoming story. Do you ever kind of use that to your players or pitches to recruits to kind of show how far you can take the whole situation in the past?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I tell my players all the time, like, if I can do it, sometimes they'll come by my house or we'll go out. We have a country club, and they'll go out there and they'll say, man, I want this. I'm like, shoot, you're going to own this. Because if I could do it, then you definitely can do it. Because, I didn't have the resources that my players have, So, and I always tell my players all the time, like, no matter what, this is my ministry. Coaching is not something that I'm doing for me. And I know I get a lot of attention because of my story, but my focus is making sure that my players accomplish whatever it is they want in life. I truly feel like I'm already winning. I don't know, if God didn't give me anything else, I think I would be fine. And my goal and my staff's goal is to make sure our players win in life. And so they know the story. I share it with them. We talk often about it. I don't try to be a parent for them. I think I'm a mentor for them, and I share a lot. I'm very open, from struggles to triumphs. I talk to them about everything, and I think that's what makes our team unique.
Got time for one more, I think. Go ahead.
Hey, Ben Pickman from The Athletic. I guess, what mistakes do you feel like you might have made at Jacksonville specifically that helped prepare you for this moment, or you feel like you learned from that set you up to get here?
Shout out to Alex Rickard Gilbert and President Tim Koss. I just heard from them today at JU. I tell you what, I wouldn't be if this was my first stop, I would have been fired already. So I obviously had a chance to make some mistakes without, the camera and the lights being on. Some of the mistakes, some of the lessons I've learned is, just understanding what battles to pick, to fight. Initially I thought I would fight any battle. I don't care what it was. I think that opportunity at JU just allowed me to grow and mature. And I don't know if you saw my tweet, but I thanked those coaches. I didn't thank them because they took me in. I thanked them because they kicked my butt over and over and over again and made me go back to the drawing board. And if anything, I was allowed to make those mistakes and grow. And I was also allowed to mature as a coach. I was 30 years old when I got that job. That's pretty young. At the time, I was role playing like crazy, trying to be who my other coaches were. At the time, I hadn't found myself, right? And so that was probably a little rocky for some of my players. So now that I'm more mature, I know who I am, and I'm confident in being who I am. So, and my players love me for it. Although my older players think I've gotten soft, but that's for another conversation. So,
Coach, thank you very much. We've gone over
Thank
time here.
y'all.
We got a couple of players coming in, so thank you very much, Coach. Really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
guys.
You bet.